Hello everybody and welcome back to another Kings of War battle report. I'm Visibly Riley, and today we have a special report with Ogres versus a combined army of Brotherhood and Elves. This battle was fought at 2250 points, or at least that's what the Ogres were, and the scenario was Dominate. Now, as I said before, this was a bit of a special battle, as we ended up having an extra person show up on game night last Tuesday, who was interested in learning about the game of Kings of War. He had brought a couple of elves with him and just wanted to add his army onto someone else's just to get a feel for the game. My opponent said that that was okay, and off we went. So first off, we have my opponent's Brotherhood list. It starts out with a horde of Valayan bowmen, followed by two, well, that says hordes of Order of Brotherhood. Those are regiments of Order of the Brotherhood. One does have the Blessing of the Gods, and the other has Brew of Strength. Then we have a regiment of Order of Redemption. We have a horde of Order of the Forsaken, a Forsaken beast with Breath 10 and Regen 5+, an exemplar of the Brotherhood who is mounted, and then two devoted, both of whom have Martyr's Prayer 7. One is on a horse. An exemplar Forsaker, I believe that guy actually has the Mace of Crushing, I forgot to add it there. And lastly, we have the Undaunted Crusaders formation, which is just fantastic. As I said before, this was sort of a spur of the moment thing, so my Brotherhood opponent just decided to drop a bunch of units. I told him not to do that, but you know, I'm not gonna, well, I would like it if people listened when I just tell them that, you know, the handicap is fine for a learning game, but he wasn't comfortable with it and dropped way too many points, but you know, it's what happens. Otherwise, I do like the list. I think that Undaunted Crusaders is just a fantastic formation, and if he gives the Order of the Redemption Pathfinder as well, I think that that could be just solid. I didn't realize the Exemplar of the Brotherhood that you get with the formation gets Bane Chant. That is awesome. I also didn't think that would be all that great on, you know, a knight army like Brotherhood. But the fact is that your knights are gonna get charged eventually, and they're going to end up disordered and lose their Thunderous, which the Order of the Brotherhood do not have Crushing. So having a bit of Bane Chant there to slap around, making sure that he can get at least Crush 1 on his units, that's just good planning. Really good. I am slightly worried about the the speed of these knight units, as he has 3 speed 8 units, 2 of whom have Pathfinder, and then he has the 2 flyers who have decent damage output. So yeah, my ogres aren't ready to really take that many combo charges, and the cat can dish it out. But he will be, my Brotherhood opponent will of course be babysitting a bit these elves. The elf opponent brought just some random stuff. I think it was mostly the Isle of Blood set. So he has a troop of Kindred Archers, a troop of Palace Guard, a troop of Tall Spears, and finally a troop of Silver Breeze Cav. The idea here was just to give him a taste of everything that the things that he probably should know about elves using the models that he had brought. So I told him he could bring Sea Guard. He decided to run them as Tall Spears, which is fine. But otherwise, I think this is a solid army, or a solid start for elves. I mean, I don't think they're really bad elf units, so yeah. Anyway, here is the Ogre list that I have been playing for the past couple weeks, but we'll do a quick refresher. We start out with a horde of Siegebreakers who have the Caterpillar Potion. Then I have a horde of Hunters with the Brew of Strength, 2 hordes of Boomers, 2 troops of Red Goblin Scouts, 2 regiments of Chariots, a Warlord who is mounted on a chariot with Banner of the Griffin, 2 ASBs, one of whom has the Blade of Slashing, the other has the Diadem of Dragonkind. Then I have a Warlock with Aura of Heroism 3 and Inspiring Talisman, and 2 Boomer Sergeants, and finally the Hell on Wheels formation. As I've said before, I think this is a solid army, and I think I'm finally getting my head around how it plays. Here we see the end of deployment, or at least the best picture I could take given what was going on here. So to talk about the table real quick, we have 2 hills. One is in my deployment zone, the other one is in the opponent's. Normally they're height 2 hills. Normally I wouldn't put hills in deployment zones. I think it's a pretty big no-no in Kings of War. But we showed up with this table already built due to some Age of Sigmar players playing before us, and we just, I mean, I moved around some of the terrain, but otherwise we just left it as is. So we've got those 2 hills, and then we have 2 forests. They're both height 6. One is in my deployment zone, one is in the center of the field, and we have 4 pieces of impassable terrain. 2 are very large, the right rock outcropping, and then the left mausoleum type thing. Those, and then we have 2 rocks in the opponent's deployment zone. Those are all height 4. I mean, I know that people are going to be like, it just doesn't seem right, but at the end of the day, this is an abstraction, so I tend to just tell people to check those feelings at the door. In terms of learning how to play competitively. Were this a narrative game? Sure, go for it. As for deployment, starting from left to right, off screen, unfortunately I didn't realize this when I took the picture, but my 2 boomer hordes are over there along with my warlock between them. In front of them are the 2 troops of red goblin scouts. You can see one of them peeking out. Behind that is my ASB with the diadem of dragonkind. That's the guy with the banner. Then in the forest, you can see those large models, of which I have 4 right now, are my siege breakers with the pathfinder. Then next to them, the hunters. To the right of them, I've got the regiment, the 1st regiment of chariots, the warlord on a chariot, and the 2nd regiment of chariots, all right there. Then to the right of that, we have the 2 boomer sergeants in a row, and behind them, finally, the ASB with the blade of slashing. My idea here was that with that mausoleum on the left, it's blocking everything but his flyers. My opponent did, we'll get to that, but he did put his flyers over there. But I can swing pretty hard there with my shooting without being molested by the archers too much, right? In the center, I decided to put my siege breakers and the hunters onto the forest that was in my deployment zone to better utilize the fact that they had Pathfinder. They could always swing to the right or the left from their position there as needed. And finally, on the right, I really wanted to get my chariots into a place where I had measured it out, and I can get to that piece of forest terrain by moving 8, which means that I will be able to see things for a charge if it comes down to it. So that's the idea there. Lastly, I put the boomer sergeants on the right just to keep people honest. I don't want, because I finished deploying well before my opponent did here, and I didn't want one of the flyers to just go over there and be able to do whatever it wants. It's always behooves me to put some shooting on both flanks, even if it's just sort of token. Keep people honest. Now, as for my opponent's deployment, starting from my left to right, we have his Forsaken, Order of the Forsaken over there. He does have more Pegasus Knights, but this is a school night, so, people tend to forget models and, in this case, bases. And then to the right of that, we've got the Exemplar Forsaker. To the right of that, we have the Palace Guard, the Elf Allies. Oh, and we will be playing the Elves as if they were part of the Order of the Brotherhood. Or the Brotherhood army here. So Inspiring will work on them. He can heal, or he can be Martyr's Prayer. We're just using them as an extension here to show this new player sort of how the game plays on a whole. And then to the right of Palace Guard, we have the Elven Archer Troop. Behind them, the Order of the Redemption. Then to the right of that, we've got the Villain Bowmen. Behind them, the 1st Devoted. That is obviously the one not on a horse. And then behind them are the Silver Priest Cav. To the right of that, we have between those 2 rocks, the 2 regiments of Order of the Brotherhood. Obviously, they're regiments, not hordes. The one in the front have the Blessing of the Gods. The one behind have Blessing of Strength. And then the 2 heroes to their left, as from the side, we've got the Exemplar of the Brotherhood in the front there, and then the Mounted Devoted behind him. And finally, to the right, we have the Tall Spears and the Beast, just keeping it up over there. For my opponent's deployment here, I like the left a lot. I think the setup there is very good, with the exception of some of the elves. But it's a very new player, so teaching him how to correctly deploy is a little hard. Were it me, I probably would have just forsaken that hill with the troop of archers, or maybe put them behind the Redemption Knights instead of the vice versa, because those Order of the Redemption right now are being blocked on a charge if those Elven archers don't also charge. So, small problem there, but otherwise I like the left a lot. The big thing that I don't like is that he has to put both of his regiments in between those 2 rocks, and as you can see, a regiment of cav just barely squeaked through. The problem with that is that I can really abuse that fact by just moving my speed elements forward. He's unlikely to be able to combo charge me with more than one of those regiments of knights, which is what I'm really worried about, and I can just pick them off piecemeal. So Yeah, I don't know what would have been better. I probably would have gone with the beast there and then put the beast and the tall spears between the rocks and then put those regiments of cav off to the right between the other two pieces of impassable terrain. But two regiments could more easily maneuver to the right there. Anyway, moving on. With Dominate, Dominate is a scenario where you measure from the center of the direct center of the table. Then you measure out a circle with a 12-inch radius. And then at the end of the game, you will add up all the unit strength within that circle, and that will be your victory points. So highest victory points wins. We move on to turn 1. So Ogres get turn 1, and they do what Ogres do. I don't have a lot of long-range shooting. I, in fact, only have 3 lightning bolts. Otherwise, I just have that breath attacks everywhere. So most of my army runs. I run now you can see the boomers over there. They were deployed parallel to the mausoleum, so I can just run alongside it. The dogs decide to nimble in front of my siege breakers and a little bit in front of the hunters, not really though. While on the right, you can see the Hero Brigade are moving towards the impassable terrain, the 2 Boomer Sergeants and the ASB with the blade of slashing. The idea here is that nothing can charge me, I'm out of range, but the Beast will probably move forward to try to get a breath attack, and if he does, I can get an easy charge with my ASB just to get stuck in there. In the center, in that forest, while I'd prefer to obviously be doing this with Pathfinder and Strider, the Chariot's having a 3+ to hit and Thunderous 2 means that the forest isn't that bad. And I do get my Warlord on Chariot along with the one of the regiments of Chariots into the woods, just touching enough so I can see through it, and out of charge range of his Knights with Pathfinder. The Chariots on the right cannot get into the woods because I don't have Pathfinder, so I can't march into it. But they do move forward to get their best line of sight facing off to the right, whether they charge into the beast, the tall spears, or if the knights just sort of dash forward. That's the idea. Keep that battle line. As for my shooting, all I can manage to do is cast with my warlock, who casts Aura of Heroism onto the boomers. That's what that gold die is down there. And I get 2 successes. So got a good spread of Rally 2, being all my chariots have it, along with almost everything on my left flank, with the exception of the dogs in the very front that they do not have it. So, moving forward. Here we see Brotherhood and Elves turn 1. So on the left there, you can see that his Palace Guard had a charge into the flank of my dogs, and this is something I really like doing with new players. I like to show them, it's one thing to hear that you get double attacks, but it's another thing to feel it. So I give him a flank charge onto some otherwise worthless dogs, just because why not? And if he takes it, I mean, it's not exactly bad for me. He will, it means that the army will likely be moving into me, which is what my ogres want. I want to be able to fight you. So otherwise, they mostly just move forward. You can see on the left the Brotherhood of Forsaken and the Exemplar Forsaker just sort of move forward to threaten my combat units. While this is a move I do not agree with, which is the Order of Redemption just dash forward past the archers, and there's just no reason to be this far forward. He's in charge range of not even just the hunters, but also the siege breakers. I mean, at the very least, he could just back out of 10 from the siege breakers and make it so the hunters have, if I want to charge, I charge solo, or maybe with some dogs. But yeah, he just rolls all the way forward, so I think that's a mistake by my opponent there. On the right, you can see that the impassable terrain has in fact impeded my opponent and made it very difficult for him to move through. He does the best he can though, so the first regiment of Order of the Brotherhood moved forward, and I think that he was definitely underestimating how far Ogre Chariots charge, as he's well within my charge range of all 3 of those units, and I think if he had backed up just a little bit, he could have better utilized that. But it's kind of hard to tell without moving the units around whether that back unit is going to be able to charge into anything. So if he had moved back a little bit, maybe he was worried that he would just exacerbate a problem by trapping that unit for a further turn. So anyway, I guess it's fine, but not exactly what I would do, but a good ending to a bad situation, I guess. With my opponent's shooting, so yeah, just showing off this charge. Yeah, these Palace Guard, blow right through my dogs. And if we roll a picture back, so I explained to my opponent here, the elf opponent, that they're the things you can do after a charge. You can overrun, you can walk backwards, or you can change your facing. And he elects to overrun. I tried to explain to him that that wasn't the best move, but I also believe strongly in letting your opponent learn from their own mistakes. So he overruns a measly 1 inch, and yeah, just exposes his flank, which is another important lesson to learn. Now that he's tasted what it feels like to flank someone, he will taste the the defeat of getting flanked with a troop, so it's not that big of a deal. And we move on to turn 2. Actually, let's roll back a few. So my opponent did get some shooting through. On the dogs, I believe the elven archers and or all the elven archers, including the Silverbreeze, shot at the dogs in the front there. Oh no, sorry, the Silverbreeze shot at the hunters, but the elven archers on that hill shoot at my dogs and manage 1 wound, which is not enough to get a waiver, while the rest of the shooting here from the Blaine, Bowman, and the Silverbreeze go into my hunters and deal 6 wounds, which is pretty good, but it's not quite enough to get a waiver. And over there on the right, the Beast of Nurgle, that is not what that thing is, the Forsaken Beast, shoots into one of my Boomer Sergeants, does 1 wound, and rolls the 10 to waiver me. So yeah, I end up with a wavered Boomer, but otherwise everyone else is unaffected by my opponent's shooting. And yep, showing on now. So turn 2. So turn 2 for Ogres, we're getting into a charge, I guess. Not often you get to see this, especially against a Knight army. But anyway, on the left, as is customary, I charge into the flank of his Palace Guard with one of my Boomer Hordes, and that's going to be painful. The other Boomer Horde moves forward to get some shots onto the Order of Forsaken, or the Exemplar Forsaker, I guess I could shoot at, but I don't really want to. The ASB moves forward to get his Diadem to support, while my excuse me, Hunters and the Siegebreakers go into the Order of Redemption. And again, this is why I moved that far forward. Anyway, they both give a charge there because my dogs are nimble and walk right around and get into the Flame Bowman. On the right flank, I decide to charge all of my chariots into his Order of the Brotherhood in the front there. Now, all 3 of them are hindered by charging, some amount through that forest. The right guys couldn't see through the forest, but from their leader point, they could draw a line to my opponent just by looking around the forest, so no problem there. And finally, I send my ASB into the snail just to really show it who's boss. On the bottom right, you can see the Boomer Sergeant that was wavered just walks backwards to get out of the way, while the other Boomer Sergeant moves forward to get some shots onto the Tall Spears. And yep, just showing off the charges. All of the charges. Yeah, that's going to be brutal, but it's a good lesson. With my shooting, I end up doing I think I do 7 wounds to the Order of Forsaken, so it's pretty good given that they have cover. But at the end of this, I do not waver them, I don't break them, obviously, because I don't waver them, but still 7 wounds, pretty good. And yeah, the Boomer Horde just walks right through the Palace Guard troop. I elect to not move forward or backwards, as I have a pretty good vantage point right now in terms of line of sight, and with the Order of the Forsaken there, they are currently in my flank, and they can't land due to the Mausoleum, so I'm not exposing myself anymore in the same way that my opponent did when he overran 1. So I will not compound that mistake after pointing it out in the first place. That would just be poor form. So in the middle, yeah, the Siegebreaker plus Hunter Charge make short work of that Order of Redemption, and that's just not surprising. That's 36 attacks that hit on a 3, and then, well, I guess it's 18 attacks that hit on a 3 and wound on a 2, and then 18 more attacks that hit on a 3 and wound on a 3 due to the crushing 2 that I've got on the Hunters. So it's not pretty. I turn to face the Order of Redemption, or Order of the Forsakers and the Exemplar Forsaker, just in case he wants to charge in. And the dogs who charged into the Blaine Bowman there end up doing 3 wounds, but do not get the waiver, so just back up right in front of them. And over here, yeah, all of my all the king's chariots and all of his ogres. I end up doing 8 wounds, which is that's okay, right? I've got 12-ish hits, and then because of my crush one, thunder one, I wound on 3, so I got like 9. I guess 8 is pretty bad. Now that I think about it, it's not terrible though. The terrible part is that I get 8 here, and with my brutal, I fail to waver these guys. Ugh, and that's ugly. Because I'm not sure whether he can combo charge at this point in the game with the 2 regiments. Because if he wants to, he can charge with the unit I just failed to waver into the rightmost chariots, and by moving the tall spears back, he can slide down, and then maybe he'll have enough room. But yeah, we'll just have to see, I guess. And my ASB charged into the snail and does 0 wounds. So, Buddy matches the Boomer Sergeant, who shot at the tall spears there with his 8 shots. He does not have cover, and I do 0 wounds. So, yep, we're just not doing great on the right flank right now. But we're dominating the left, so that's always good. And we move on to Brotherhood and Elves turn 2. So on the left there, you can see that the Order of the Forsaken go into my Siege Breakers, while the Belain Bowmen go back into my dogs that have charged him. His Exemplar Forsaker gets a flank charge into my chariots, and that's super unfortunate for me. At least he is hindered by landing in the woods, so that's that. The Order of the Brotherhood with the Blessing of the Gods could get a charge into my rightmost chariots, and after finagling with the bases, we find out that that back unit, yeah, they are in fact trapped by his own unit and the impassable terrain, so they cannot get a charge, and he decides to instead just go for a combo charge with his tall spears to get some extra wounds in there. The snail goes into the ASB, and let's talk about these charges a little bit. So let's talk about these charges a little bit. So the Order of the Forsaken into the Siege Breakers. I think that this is a big mistake. Uh, just why? I mean, he is wounding me on force because he's got Crush 2, but there's just no point to it. Like, he can't charge into either the boomers because of the spacing issues there. He can't charge into the hunters due to my dumb dogs being there, and he can't charge into the ASB or the warlock due to line of sight and again not being able to fit. But honestly, I would have just flown over my lines, accepted that the boomers were going to shoot at me, and just taken that turn off, because throwing them into the siege breakers, sure, you'll probably do some damage, but they've got 18 attacks on a 3+ and then a 4+. So yeah, that's 6 wounds. That's just not enough to care. At the bottom there, you can see the gold die is back. I did in fact cast Aura of Heroism, and I got the 2 off, so that was my turn as well. With the other charges, the Blaine Bowman into my dogs, that seems like a fine charge. Who cares? The Forsaker into the flank of the chariots. Now this is an interesting one, because even at the flank, he only has 14 attacks, which hit on a 4. And then he wounds me, I believe, on a 3 with 1 reroll due to the Evasive Crushing. He could get a Bane Chant off onto that guy if he wants to, but this is definitely high risk, high reward, which is he could blow right through those chariots, he could waver those chariots, both of those are good results, but if he does neither, it's not pretty. I guess he strips out my Thunderous no matter what, but I'm already in the woods, so I'm going to lose 1 Thunderous regardless. So, I mean, seems okay, but not the best. With his, we did forget to talk about and then the right combat, that's just what you do. Maybe he wanted to, it would have been better off charging into my Warlord to get rid of my rallying, but I'm still a 16-18 with Death 5, and he can at best be Crushing 1 with Blessing of the Gods, 18 attacks. Not pretty. I think he made the right move, just attempting to blow right through my chariots on the right there. And with his shooting, the elves here end up doing 3 more wounds to my hunters. Thankfully, they do not break them due to the Aura of Heroism, so great spell. It's basically ogre healing. And then in this combat, he blows right through my rightmost chariot, so they are obliterated. You can see some of the wounds that have been slipped around. So 4 of the 8 I did to the Order of the Brotherhood are now on the Martyr's Prayer, devoted in the back there on the horse. And here, yep, the Villain Bowmen do 0 wounds, which is kind of funny. I guess it's no break check, but he didn't strip my my Thunderous 1 away, but then he was failing, so I don't get it anyway. So it's not that big of a deal. Over here, yeah, my opponent rolls insanely well. Actually, let's if we roll back to here, those knights hit with all well, so they hit with 16 of their attacks. 2 of them were 1s, and then those also hit with the reroll. And then he wounded me with 16 of them. So the knights alone did 16 wounds to those chariots. It was brutal. And over here, yeah, the Order of the Forsaken do almost as well, doing 11 wounds, so almost double the average there to the Siegebreakers. I mean, variance happens, and at least he doesn't break them, so there's good news there. I won't be able to complain later about how Lady Luck screwed me, I guess, because I do not break. And yeah, his lord on the Exemplar Forsaker that charged into the flank of those chariots. I don't think I have a picture of it, but they end up doing 3 wounds to my chariots. He bounces off after failing to get a waiver, and they end up with a pretty, you can see right there, they've got a pretty juicy flank charge onto those Order of Redemption, or not Order of Redemption, Order of Brotherhood, right in the front there, that have taken 4 wounds. On the right flank, the far right, the Forsaken Beast, yeah, we continue this pillow fight. He does 1 measly wound to my ASB and fails to get a waiver or a break there, so unlucky. And we move on to turn 3. So Ogre turn 3, my ASB goes back into the snail, showing him his boss. We're starting from right to left this time, I guess. So, and then I take my Warlord and the Chariot Regiment into the Order of Brotherhood in the front there. Had he not Martyr's Prayed that unit, and they'd still been at 8 wounds, I probably would have just sent my Warlord in to finish the job. Or maybe just, well, no, I probably wouldn't have done that. I probably would have sent the Warlord into the Tall Spears and then chosen to just shoot at those knights with my 2 Boomer Sergeants. But given that he is healed now, I decide to go there. I can't afford to do a counter charge onto his Forsaker, so I just take the flank charge onto the knights and accept what may come. And over there on the left, my dogs nimble around to get away from his what are those? The Fillein archers, and making room for my horde of hunters to get in there, finish the job. I mean, they only have 3 wounds on them, but I guess I could finish the job. And my Siegebreakers, along with, again, my boomers, just love to charge things in the flank, and they go right into that Order of the Forsaken. The other boomers move forward to get some shots onto his Forsaker. I'm hoping to get a waiver there at least, while my Warlock in the back there just readies himself. He could go for a Lightning Bolt, or he could go for the Aura of Inspiration if you want, or Aura of Heroism if he wants. And lastly, we've got the 2 Boomer Sergeants just taking aim at his Tall Spears. And this just shows off the combats. Yep. You can see here, it's actually a picture of my work in progress Warlord on Chariot. He's got some green stuff and conversion work, and then I'm painting his war banner separately, just because there's no real reason to glue it on beforehand. A little bit of a tip there for those who do not know: do not glue your banners on before. And yep, that charge and that one. So at the end of shooting here, I go for my ASB with the diadem can shoot at either the elven archers or a wounded wizard in the back there. He had healed 5 wounds off of his Order of the Forsaken, so he's sitting at 5, and I decide, well, the diadem, I mean, it's 10 shots, I can get, 2-ish wounds onto the archers, or I can get one-ish wounds onto the wizard. And putting that wizard on I believe a 4 to get a waiver is just so much better than the 8 I'll need on the archers here. But then my dice go bonkers. I hit 7 attacks on a 5+, and then I wound with all 7 of them. And that wizard is just vaporized. Diadem finally making his points back in the game. It's not been doing well for me in the past few. But yep, there we go. And with this shooting, my boomers and my Warlock does throw a lightning bolt to try to get a wound up here. I end up doing 8 wounds to his Forsaker, and unfortunately I don't roll the 7 I need to get a waiver, and he will just be ready to charge anywhere he wants next turn, which is unfortunate. And with my shooting here, yeah, we shoot into the tall spears. I don't think I removed them here either. That's it looks like they don't even have a wound marker. Boomer Sergeant's not doing not living their best life this game. In combat, my Siege Breakers and Boomers make short work of the Horde of Order of the Forsaken. I turn my Siege Breakers just barely, making it so the archers on the hill there are in their front arc, but with 11 wounds on me, I'm not super hopeful about that. The Boomers turn to face towards the table. They can either move towards his Forsaker if he chooses to hold it back, or they can go into the archers. With my combat here, yeah, I actually do very well. I end up doing, I believe, 12 wounds here. Yeah, I do 12 wounds here. And with my Brutal, I put him at 16, and I roll the dice, and I get a 3. Originally pretty irate, and by irate I mean, whatever, happens. But I'm like, man, I really thought I would have at least wavered them, right? But my opponent then informs me that Villain Bowmen are merely a 1921, so I did waver them. Brutal, great rule. I love it when I don't have to pay for it. So, well, I love that for a lot of things in life, but let's not get into that. So over here on the right, you can see I finally finish off the Order of the Brotherhood in the front there, and I overrun with my Warlord on Chariot to make it so the second unit of Order of the Brotherhood have to charge him and not into my Chariot regiment. I think I adjusted my Chariot regiment a little bit after this pick to make it so if the Forsaker wants to charge, he charges them in the flank, not in the rear. But if he does that, he'll eat some hungry doggos. But anyway, my ASB does 2 wounds to his snail this turn, and yeah, he doesn't get a waiver there, but I've now done 2 wounds to it, so yeah, bright side. And over here we can see the Brotherhood and Elf turn 3. Again, the snail goes into the ASB, while the Forsaker decides to go into a Boomer Sergeant. And the idea here is that originally he was going to just flank charge the ASB along with the Forsaken Beast, but I reminded my opponent that those were supposed to be on 50 mil bases, not 40, which is what he has them on now, that he would not be able to fit if he did that. So yeah, he just goes, okay, and charges into my Boomer Sergeant. The Order of the Brotherhood go into my Warlord on Chariot. That's a bit of a dicey one because he does have Burr of Strength. He can Bane Chant. He doesn't need to Bane Chant because he has Thunderous. But yeah, so 18 attacks on a 3+, 3+, 2+, so that's 10-ish wounds, and I'm merely a 16-18. So it's dicey. And on the left there, you can see the Villain Bowmen just sitting there due to their wavered, while the Elven Archers just sit there as well. And I will make a short note here. I was trying to encourage my Elven opponent on to move those Silver Breeze around to really get a feeling for them, because they're speed 10 nimble with bows. I mean, they want to be moving, but he seemed content to just leave them there. And you can't make people. You can lead the horse to water. You can't make him shoot his bows. So, yep. And otherwise, that's it for movement. In combat, my opponent, I haven't marked it yet, but actually, if we roll a picture back, there's one other thing that happens, which is he starts casting some Martyr's Prayer off, and the wizard removes 4 wounds from his Forsaker, so now that mounted wizard in the back there is sitting on 8, while the Forsaker is merely on 4. And he regened 1 wound on the snail, I think, so he's at 1 there. And I haven't marked the wounds here yet. My opponent again rolls pretty well, not super well, but gets 12 wounds onto my Warlord there, and I'm like, wow, that is bad, because I had not done the math on it beforehand. Always do the math beforehand, guys. But I was trying to teach a new person this game, and it's kind of hard you get distracted. So yeah, I take 12 wounds here, but fortunately for me, my opponent rolls, I believe, a 4. No, I'm sorry, a 3. So he gets that raw 15 and doesn't break me. And that's bad for him. My opponent rolling very well in hidden wounds and then getting to nerve and going oopsies, which is why it's always important to remember you're not doing poorly, until your opponent is not rolling super well until they roll that nerve check. So over here, yeah, the Forsaker does 4 wounds to the Boomer Sergeant, and again fails the nerve check there, which is very unfortunate. The Snail, I think, does 1 wound to my ASB. I mean, such a pillow fight over here, but it does get the waiver, so he's got that going for him. Yep, just showing off that waiver, and we move on to turn 4. So turn 4, we get some more combat then. So the boomers the boomers that have charged every turn now, besides turn 1, screw shooting, get finally a front charge into his elven archers on the hill, while my hunters on 9 wounds go into the Villain bowmen, hoping to finish them off. My other boomers back up their ogre brethren, attempting to shoot down the Silver Reese cav over there, while my heroes just sort of meander about. I move my ASB with the diadem close enough to shoot at his Forsaker, while the other Boomer Sergeant... oh no, it looks like he killed that Boomer Sergeant. I'm sorry. No, he didn't. Okay. I move my unwounded Boomer Sergeant over to, again, shoot at the Forsaker Beast, while my ASB, who is now wavered, backs up away from the snail, and my dogs take the center. For my counter charges, I take my Warlord into the front of the remaining order of the Brotherhood, while the other chariots that were on 3 wounds charge into them as well. It is, I believe, still a hindered charge, but that's a lot of attacks. My Boomer Sergeant that got charged by his Forsaker has a bit of a, I can do a few things here, which is I can see, I actually messed up. Yeah, the lack of 50 mil base strikes again here, because when we measured the line of sight, I could see just barely the cav with my Boomer Sergeant, but if he was on a 50 mil base, I don't think I can. Well, anyway, I send the Boomer Sergeant over there into the flank. Don't worry, he does not attack. And yep, just showing off the charges. Feeling pretty confident about these. I shoot into these Silver Breeze and I roll double 1s. So we first double 1 of the game. We've got a lot of 3s, but not a lot of double 1s. Over here, I do 6 wounds to these archers. That's not all that bad. I mean, I've only got 18 attacks, but I guess I do, 18 attacks, I wound on a 3, right? That's fine, that's an average. So I do 6 wounds, but I do have 7 counting brutal for the break here, and I fail to break them because I roll another 3. So they're not even wavered. And finally, the hunters here blow right through the Villain horde and turn to face the unwavered or unfettered Silver Beast cabin back there. And yeah, the chariots plus my warlord blow right through that Order of the Brotherhood. I believe my warlord hit and wounded with 6 attacks, so the chariots just going for a mop-up, rolling fairly well as well, or fairly average at least. The Boomer Sergeant does not attack because we got 2 double 1s already, so I must have rolled pretty well with the chariots now that I think about it. Anyway, so that illegal flank charge ends up not mattering, just ends up being I move my Boomer Sergeant over here for no reason. And yes, I did take aim with my ASB and Boomer Sergeant onto his Forsaker, but I do 0 wounds, so... no, that's not right. I did 3 wounds, you can see the 7 right there, but I do not get a break. I do get a waiver. So, yep, I finally wavered this thing, feeling great because he's right in front of my ASB. And we move on to Ogre and Elf, turn 4. Turn 4. So turn 4, his Beast goes into my Ogre ASB on the right again, just hoping to finish him off finally. His Exemplar of the Brotherhood goes into my Warlord on Chariot, hoping to finish him off. Sitting on 12 wounds, he probably will. The elves on the elven archers on the hill decide to countercharge into my boomers there as well. But we'll see. Well, I don't even think we moved him. And then otherwise, yeah, he moves with one of the wizards over to get some heal onto the Silveries, as he's already sitting on 8 wounds with Martyr's Prayer, might as well push it. Pulls a further 4 off, so just 4 every round, and sitting on 12 now. And that's it for their movement. Oh, and the Forsaker just backs up a little bit to get a charge on turn 5. And oop. So in these combats, my opponent, I believe, does another wound with his snail onto my ASB, but does not break him. The exemplar of the Brotherhood that charged into my warlord does not hit. So he hits on a 3+, he rolls 2-2-1, and that's super unfortunate for my opponent. Again, you can see the golden die in the middle there. I cast it onto my ASB to give him Aura of Heroism to make sure that I have that rallying bubble. And finally, the archers on the hill do 0 wounds to my boomers and just back off. And we move on to Ogre turn 5. So Ogre turn 5, I charge my boomers on the hill back into the archers. Yes, I do that, and my hunters join them with a flank charge. The other boomers move forward to shoot at the Silver Breeze. I take my Warlord and Chariots into the Exemplar of the Brotherhood that are right in front of my Warlord and Chariot, and then I just turn around with my Boomer Sergeants and take aim at his Forsaker, along with my ASB. Now, unfortunately, I have no more pictures, as my Brotherhood opponent called it here as this was a learning game, or a teaching game. So we had gone a little over time at this point, and he just, sort of wanted to start packing up as most of his stuff was gone anyway. And I rolled it out with my elf opponent just to show him what it was like. And the 2 Boomer Sergeants do pretty well against the Forsaker, well enough that I get a break check and kill it, while my ASB kills off his wizard pretty easily. I mean, he was already sitting on 12 wounds, and I've got a breath attack, so yeah, it blows right through there. My boomer horde that shot at his Silver Breeze, even at their 3 wounds, do a further 8 and kill them. And the hunters and boomers on the hill end up killing off the elven archers. So at the end of the game, my opponent is sitting on. I do not think I charged my dogs into his Forsaken Beast, because I could not interrupt the honorable duel between him and the ASB. And at the end of turn 5, the only thing that's on the table is that beast. I kill everything else, and my opponent goes, "Oh, that's interesting," and we just call it there. So at the end of turn 5, I have plenty of unit strength. I mean, I've got the dogs. I have the dogs, my chariot regiment, my boomer sergeants, the ASB, the warlock, and that's it. So I have 7 unit strength in the center, while he has the beast of. I actually have 8 with my ASB, and then he has 1 with his snail. So it ends up being an 8-1 victory for the Ogres, and a nice teaching game for a new Kings of War opponent. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!